Hello, guys. Welcome back. It is Wednesday, time for another live answering your real estate questions. I've got feedback here. Sorry, guys. Let me cut that off. I appreciate you guys being here this week. Josh is still out of commission. So those of you looking to have, the perfect answer to your loan mortgage question, Josh will be back with us hopefully next week, where we can answer your questions. He had a little minor surgery, so he's out. But I do have the experience necessary to answer most of those questions for you. If it's anything out of the realm, I'll do my best to get you some answers. But let me know where you're watching from this week, what you're seeing in your housing market. If you're out there putting in offers, what are you seeing? Would love to know what you're seeing with regards to inventory as well, right? I did a video earlier this week where discussing inventory, and I'm hearing some people in some markets saying, yeah, we're starting to see the, inventory levels pick up. We're starting to see home prices pull back a little bit. And then I'm hearing people on the other side saying we're not seeing any increases in inventory, which is a lot like we're seeing here in Southern California. No real increases in inventory. Buyer demand still remains pretty high. So would love to know what you're seeing out there, because, your feedback, your insight is helpful in guiding others in that process. And do me a favor. If you're here watching, you have questions, put them in the comment section. That's what makes this whole thing work. I'm here to help guide you, educate you, empower you through the home buying process or selling process, regardless of which side you're on. So, put your questions in there, and I'll do my best to jump into it. So once again, we have Jennifer Lego here helping moderate the chat room. So say hello to Jennifer. Thank you for being here, Jennifer, as always. We've had some reports. We had the Fed came out today with their April minutes, said a little bit about inflation, which I'm sure we'll talk about here, kind of their plan going forward. There was a little bit of change in how they spoke, their comments versus past meetings. And we've also seen a little bit of change in lumber prices, right? So over the last couple of weeks, we've seen lumber skyrocket. In fact, I went to Home Depot this past weekend to buy just a regular sheet of 4x8 plywood for a project that I was doing. That piece of plywood, 5/8, it would normally be about $10. I paid, I think, $67 or $68 for that piece of plywood. It's crazy. But over the last couple of days, we've actually seen lumber futures pull back. So maybe that means, the cost of material is actually going to pull back a little bit, which will help those in that new construction world. But let's dive into some questions here and get moving forward. So Michael Duree, a normal, regular rather, on the channel. Thanks for being here, Michael. Construction of our home has not even started yet. In 2 months, the building has gone up nearly $17,400 for that same floor plan. That's equity for sure. Absolutely. That's the thing about new construction. If you can get in the earlier phases of those developments, especially in the environment that we're in right now, where, they're going to build these communities out, you're going to see that appreciation. As those additional homes get built, you're going to see it reflected in your price. In fact, I have some clients right now building in Arizona, in the outside, in the outskirts of the Phoenix area. And when they bought their property, I think it was in the mid sevens or so. They're selling that same floor plan right now for almost $900,000, and their property isn't completed yet. It won't be done until sometime around September. So, those are real gains, real equity, that you're looking at in those new construction property. Eric has a question. When the soft credit check is done before closing, if my credit score goes up, would the interest rate be able to get adjusted to a better rate? So when they're pulling the soft check at the end, they're just basically looking for new debt. They're not really looking for credit score changes or what have you. So chances are your rate wouldn't really be affected in that scenario. But in the case that your credit score actually does go up, maybe you're doing something to try to increase your credit, during the process, and you're intentionally trying to raise your score, and the lender is able to pull a new credit report, or your lender is able to provide a new credit report to the lender, and it shows a higher credit score that would actually benefit your rate. yeah, there's a chance that your rate you could benefit from that. But that's a conversation to have with your lender when going through that process and talking about, credit scores and what have you. As a buyer, as a borrower in this environment, don't do things to your credit to try to improve it without letting your lender know. Because in some cases, you can do things that you think are beneficial that could end up affecting you negatively. And obviously, you don't want to do that, right? Because if your credit score, if they pulled a new report and the credit score went down, it could affect you in a negative way. So you don't want to do that. But I do have a super chat coming in here from Sean. Sean, thanks, man. Thanks for the super chat. I referred Sean up to a real estate agent just north of where I'm located here. He said my realtor ended up contacting a place, getting a showing, and my offer in before it went on the market, and they accepted 10% over list, but no competition. Thanks for the referral. Share this with Josh when he's feeling better. So you guys might say, look at that and go, the guy paid 10% over list price. That's why he got it. Not true. In the market that he's looking, homes are selling at minimum at 10% over list price. So he put in multiple offers before that, wasn't able to get them accepted just because of competition and what have you. He's got a great agent that was able to guide him and help him get into escrow. So congrats on that, Sean. I appreciate the super chat as well, man. So I will definitely relay that message to Josh as well, because I'm sure he'll be excited, and hopefully we can have you on here for another success story here soon enough. Let's see here. So we've got Judy watching from New Jersey. Hi, Judy. Jose, is Loan Depot a scam? They sent me a refi flyer in the mail offering low 3%. And the back of the flyer says only need a 640 FICO. I wouldn't say Loan Depot's a scam, but they send out marketing to get people to call, just like anybody that's doing, any sort of mailers. They're trying to get you to call so that they can have a conversation and hopefully sell you on a loan or what have you. So do they offer loans at 3% with a 640? Absolutely. But chances are it's probably an FHA loan. Conventional loans with a 640, chances are you're not getting low 3% in this market. I think, the best rates right now, if you're a well-qualified buyer doing a conventional loan, you have down payment, all that good stuff, you're kind of the perfect candidate. Right now, those rates are somewhere around 3%. So just be, cautious when you're having those conversations. Talk to multiple people, compare interest rates, compare fees. Like you would with anything. It would be no different than doing that with a mortgage professional. Get a referral from somebody that's had a great experience. If you don't know a mortgage professional, you can reach out to me. I will put you in touch with somebody, regardless of your area, that can guide you in the right direction, and that's honest and will give you a quote, and you can decide how it compares to others that you're getting. All right. Johnny says, do you feel Lennar is a decent new construction builder? Lennar is a big builder. I don't know with regards to, how they rank versus, all of the homes out there, all the different builders out there, KB Homes, Lennar, TriPoint, all of these different builders. I mean, they're a solid builder. They've been around for a long time. That's about all the information I can give you. Outside of that, it's, I don't really have a lot to provide. Let's see here. Tal says, hi, thank you for all the great videos so far. We are a newlywed couple, not sure if we should buy a house or rent a condo for now. So, with anybody looking to buy or rent now, I would say compare the two, right? What's your plan? Are you planning on renting because there's something in the future that you think would be a better opportunity to buy, or are you not in a position to buy a house right now because you don't have the down payment, you don't have maybe the income or the ability to qualify for a loan? I would say if you can qualify for a property and it fits the plan that you've created for yourself with regards to your future or what have you, compare it to what it would cost to rent and see if it makes sense. I mean, I'm one of those people, if you've watched my channel for any period of time, I've said I believe that home prices will likely be higher a year from now. and probably higher than that 2 years from now. The market is likely going to increase until something changes with supply. It's that's the reality. And you've just got a lot going on right now with home buyers entering the market for various reasons. You got the millennials entering the market because they're becoming prime buying age. You got those people that are outgrowing their properties and need to buy something else. So you've got those move up buyers. You're always having investors in the market that are, whether they're buying them to flip or what have you, or just buying them to live in part-time or maybe as a rental. And then you've got, just people that are now moving out of areas because they no longer have to be close to where they work and all of these factors. So you got all these different migration patterns and what have you factoring into homes. And you got, builders that are behind on building homes. They're not going to be able to catch up for quite some time. And so I just don't know that a lot is going to change. With that said, you're likely to see rents continuing to increase, especially if inflation does become, more of a problem. Rents are going to go up. So you're going to pay more money to rent a home, especially in some markets that it might cost to own a home. So depending on where you're located, that answer might be a little bit more clear than when, in an area where, it's actually more expensive, like here in Southern California. It's expensive to purchase a property just because of where prices have gone. But rents are also very high. So you got to break it down and see what makes more sense to you in your scenario. El Jimenez, what do you think buying a home in Las Vegas from California? Not exactly sure the question there. Are you planning on living in the property? Is it an investment? Are you trying to figure out if you can buy a property in Las Vegas, still staying in California? So maybe clarify what you're talking about. And I'll come back to that question just so we can get a little bit further into it. Michael again saying Texas, everything is pending that is on the market. So yeah, things are moving really quickly. I mean, in the housing report that I did just a couple of days ago here in California, our average days on market for the state of California in April was 7 days. 7 days. It's insane. And if you think, out of that 7 days, I mean, how they look at that is when it went from active to pending in the MLS, right? So you have to backtrack a little bit and think, okay, if it went in, in 7 days, chances are there was some negotiation going back and forth between one offer or multiple offers or what have you. So the reality is that property probably had offers day one. Day two as well. And by day 3 or day 4, they're actually negotiating with those offers, trying to figure out, clarify terms, maybe ask for highest and best or whatever it is to figure out which offer they're going to go with. And sometimes, they give those buyers 2 days to respond. So in that case, that means that properties are really selling in 4 or 5 days on average. So if you're out there looking, things move very, very, very quickly. And again, it's not a push to say you need to do something, but just know the environment that you're in. It's competitive, what you have to do in order to kind of stay in front of that, because that's what your competition's doing, right? That's what they're paying attention to. Gia Ferrari, we backed out of a contract 3 times already, but the first 2 weren't our fault. Now our agent said she will not write another offer for us unless we are sure. Can agents do that? Absolutely. Unfortunately, it's, I don't take this the wrong way, but it's like the boy that cried wolf, right? I mean, cry wolf long enough, when you actually need it, there's no help there. In the case of an agent writing offers for you, they probably think that you're not serious. And they don't want to continue writing offers if you're not planning on moving forward with them, because for one, it's a waste of time. Secondly, it's also a reputation thing, right? So if I put in an offer for you, it gets accepted or what have you on one side, that agent looks at me, if my client backs out as a reflection, especially once it happens maybe a couple of times. And so, this business is about reputations and relationships and what have you. So if you're writing offers, you want to make sure it's the right property. Now, in the case that maybe you go out and, you're getting outbid on everything, and now you want to write 3 or 4 offers in a weekend because you like all of these properties and you would be happy with any of them. That's a different scenario. But if you're writing offers and then changing your mind once something gets accepted, unfortunately, it's one of those situations where the agent can not write an offer or what have you. But that also means that you have an opportunity to go to another agent in most cases, right? If the agent's not willing to write an offer for you, you can go to another agent. But I would tell you, if you're doing that, just make sure that it's the right property that you plan on moving forward if it gets accepted. Now, if something happens during the transaction and you change your mind, that's one thing. But if you're changing your mind just because of cold feet or what have you, that's a whole different scenario. Honey Buns is scared again. So Honey Buns, you were scared last week and then you were okay as the night went on. So hopefully that changes again. Miss Taylor, is it just me this evening? It is. Unfortunately, you guys just have to look at this mug. There's no dialogue going back and forth. It's really difficult, if you guys don't know, just to talk into a camera without having any response on the other side, without having any faces to look at. It's weird. It really is. It's a lot easier to have somebody on here to kind of bounce things off back and forth and make the conversation move along. Otherwise, I'm just, I'm the only one talking. I don't really like hearing my voice. It's weird. Anyway, we're going to move on. C. Rogers. Between USDA to possibly FHA, which one is really better for lower monthly payments? And how far in the home purchase process is there no turning back from the lender's perspective? So there's 2 different questions going on here. USDA and FHA, not the same loan by any means. USDA allows you to purchase up to 100% of the value of the home, but there's some caveats. The first caveat is it's got to be deemed a rural property, right? What is a rural property? It has to meet these specific guidelines that, as a rural area. I don't remember the actual population right off the top of my head, but there's a website you can go type in an address and figure out if it's a rural property. There's also income restrictions. You can't make more than a certain amount of income in order to qualify for a USDA loan. So there's a couple stipulations there for USDA versus FHA, right? FHA requires a 3.5% down payment. There are no income requirements. You can make as much money as you want. The property can be anywhere. It doesn't have to be in a rural area. If you're buying a condo, though, it does have to be FHA approved. So there's a couple of things there. So there are really 2 different types of loans. USDA, if you can qualify for a USDA loan, I think the monthly payment will likely be less than that of an FHA loan because you don't have the upfront mortgage insurance premium like you do with FHA. And I believe the MI rates on USDA are a little bit less than those of FHA as well. Don't hold me to that. So USDA, if you can qualify, is a solid loan. But in a lot of areas of the country, you can't do USDA just because the property is not classified as rural. Second question, how far in the home purchase process is there no turning back from the lender's perspective? So you can cancel at any point that loan hasn't closed in theory. But understand that on the real estate side, there might be some issues, if you will, right? You might lose your deposit in some cases. You might be liable for additional costs depending on what state you're located in, how their real estate purchase contract is written. Here in the state of California, for example, you could cancel all the way up until the last day of closing, and you could lose your deposit in that case. But from a lender's perspective, the lender, there's nothing they can really do on their side. It's more on the real estate side that you would actually incur, penalties or what have you with losing your escrow deposit or potentially other fees, again, depending on how that contract's written. So hopefully that answers your question. But you want to make sure that in the process, again, that you're moving forward before you release those contingencies so that you're not putting anything at risk of potentially losing that deposit. So hopefully that guides you and helps you in in making the right decision there. All right. Is there any way I can get a mortgage? So King Amen. Is there any way I can get a mortgage if I make $20,000 a year? I really want to buy a duplex or triplex. I have over $28,000 for a down payment and a 640 credit score. What can I do? So you asked this question on a video earlier this week, I believe, and I did answer it. Chances are with the $20,000 income, you're going to have issues buying a property in most cases, unless you can find a very, inexpensive duplex, triplex, or what have you, right? It's not going to pencil out in most cases. So instead of diving into the details there, I would tell you that you're probably going to need more income in order to qualify when buying a property. Let's see here. We got Lily from Texas, Keith, or Kevin rather, Hawthorne. I believe Kevin's in Florida. Josh, listen to this. This guy got some nerve, huh? It's hard watching at home, not being able to reply. It feels like a muzzle. Should be back next time Mr. Smith is live. Congrats, Sean. Glad Jeb got us connected with a pro. So awesome. So Josh is watching. Hey, so, you guys have questions. We'll make him answer them in the chat. That's fantastic. Put him to work. All right. Nightbot says, if you find the content helpful, make sure you click the like button and subscribe to the channel. I like that. Let's see here. So Zachary, I just want to buy a house before my lease is up this year. So yeah. So you know what? One thing I want to talk about real quick, and I've been meaning to talk about this in other videos, is if you're leasing a property. Now, this isn't directly related to this. Sorry. Zachary, good luck in your search. If you're leasing a property and you're in contract on another property, don't cancel your lease until you know that you're moving forward with that property, right? I've had buyers in the past that canceled their lease and then decide that that's not the right property. And now they've either scrambled to try to find a property or they've had to find another place to rent short term. So don't cancel your lease until you know you're moving forward with that property, right? So yes, there's some additional days that you're probably going to have to pay because you're renting and there's going to be some overlap, but safety in that scenario is worth the extra money and the peace of mind in my experience. So, California, contracts are typically 17, 21 days on contingency. So after you release those final contingencies, then give your landlord the notice. Before that, it might be too soon because things can happen. All right. So Ryan saying, I sound good, man. Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate it. Let's see what we got here. So Alexis ran credit 2 months ago and no luck with offers yet. Score was 725. Should we rerun credit for better rates? So if you're not in escrow, I would say no need to rerun your credit at this time. Just if you're comfortable with what the lender was telling you with regards to where you qualify at that time, no need to rerun credit, no need to essentially get reapproved, if you will. Your credit's usually good for 60, 90-ish days. So, even if it has, as long as nothing's really changed in your credit, you haven't missed any payments, you haven't run up a credit card, anything crazy or gotten new credit, you should be okay with not rerunning the credit. A lender may say something otherwise, but I think you're probably safe to keep looking, at which point you do find the right property, you make an offer, while your offer is being negotiated, or maybe when you receive a response, have your lender rerun it then, just to verify that everything is good before, maybe you make that initial escrow deposit. So hopefully that is helpful there. So guys, let's get some questions rolling in here. So today, the Fed came out, right? Changed a little bit of their, not necessarily their policy, but in how they're going to approach it, right? So they've had this idea that they're going to continue to buy a certain amount of bonds, basically for the foreseeable future, right? And they're going to keep rates low for the foreseeable future. And their outlook is basically until employment, until we regain full employment, and their inflation goes above 2% or what have you. And they're allowing it to go above 2%, for basically the foreseeable future, again, because they know that, obviously that there's going to be a lot of money spent in the interim, just because of a lot of stimulus and what have you. So a little bit of change in the policy. And with that, the 10-year today went up a little bit, which Josh mentioned to me before this came on, that it affected rates about 1/8%. So rates went up today about 1/8, and I believe they went up a little bit last week as well. So on a conventional loan right now, most well-qualified buyers are going to be sitting somewhere around 3%. So hopefully that's helpful for you out there. If you're doing FHA or VA, you're going to be somewhere around 2.5%. Maybe if you have really high credit scores, just below that. If your scores are in the lower echelon of credit scores there, maybe 640-ish, maybe it's going to be a little bit higher than that 2.5. But if you're thinking or wondering where rates are, that should give you a pretty good idea for right now. El Jimenez came back here with the earlier question. And earlier asked about buying a property in Vegas. Now clarified saying buying a home in Las Vegas for investment. So with investment property, you just got to make sure you understand the markets that you're buying in. Las Vegas is one of those markets that has gone just gangbusters, during the pandemic and what have you. And so, make sure, any investment property you buy, just make sure that, you're in a position that if it's not rented out, you're okay, and able to make those rent payments. Las Vegas is one of those areas that a lot of people believe, when all this settles down, it'll be one of the first markets to get hit, and prices pull back. I don't know. I mean, I know there's a lot of people still moving there. There's a lot of people from California moving there. So it's hard to say what the future holds, but I would say with any investment property, just make sure you understand the area that you're buying, and that, it's, that you have the reserves, the money to continue floating it and what have you, and also I say this every time when you're buying an investment property, are you buying it for cash flow purposes, or are you buying it for appreciation? And you've got to really decide on that up front, because most of the times you're not going to get both. Right now you're getting both because the housing market has gone crazy, but that's not typical. So if you're buying it from a cash flow perspective, the numbers make sense, great. It's probably a good investment because rents aren't likely going anywhere. But if for whatever reason there is a surplus of homes on the market there that don't sell, rents could pull back a little bit. So just make sure whatever you're doing, you're careful. Talk to a real estate agent out there. Let them guide you through that process, and you can ask the right questions to make sure you're making the right investment decision at that time. So Rachel, let's see here. Too much talking myself, guys, and my throat's getting raspy over here. So sold my home in Vegas for full price and $30K over appraisal. If appraisal comes in lower, do we hold out for a better no appraisal contingency? What does your agent say? Right? It's tough to say in this environment, potentially, right? I mean, did you receive any offers up front that waive that appraisal contingency? Because maybe that's somebody that you can go back to and say, this deal fell out of escrow. Are you interested in moving forward and what have you? Now, if this was the only offer that you received, maybe it's worth negotiating and trying to figure out some common ground with that offer so that, you don't waste additional time and maybe risk not finding another offer quickly. But Vegas is a hot market right now. So depending on the property, the price, and all of that good stuff, you're probably in a good position. But I would say listen to your real estate agent. What are they saying about it, right? Make sure they have your best interest at heart. I had just closed out a couple deals last week, and it was getting a little sketchy there at the end because loan docs weren't coming in and what have you. And I was telling the client, I mean, we had 5 offers on the property. And I said, listen, I think it's going to close. Everything, all the conversations I'm having are the right conversations. We're just waiting at this point, right? It was a non-QM loan. We were waiting for docs. The lender kept giving us the runaround. And I said, we had 4 offers. I said, one of those 4 offers would definitely move forward if this buyer does not. But at the same time, you would be the only house coming back on the market in that neighborhood. So you would have no problem going back into escrow. The problem is you lose that time, and time was important because they were moving out of the area, right? They were moving to Arizona to start their life again. And so it was important that, with certain timelines were met. So, it all depends on the situation. But to answer your question, there's definitely a possibility, but I would take the guidance of your agent because that's who you hired. Let's see here. Alberto is asking, buying a new Ryan Homes townhome, but we haven't locked in a rate. This property is supposed to be finished and we closed in October. Should I be concerned with the rate? That's a difficult question, right? We don't know where rates are going. I had Lizzie on here last week, Lizzie Hofer. She's in Arizona. She believes rates are going to go up. I have Josh on here almost every week. Josh believes that, rates are likely going to trend back down, but the question is, when are they going to trend back down? I don't personally see a lot happening with interest rates, quarter, 0.3% either way. Locking a rate now in October is going to cost you a lot of money to do it. So, I would say that you're probably better off waiting until you can get at least 60 days out from that time to lock in a rate so that you're not paying that cost for locking it, way out, now. But you may ask that lender, whoever your lender is, if you lock something now and rates trend down, can you take advantage of it? If rates do go lower, or are you stuck with the rate that you have? But unfortunately, it's hard to predict where rates are going at the moment, just because there's a lot going on, a lot of different dynamics. But as we've mentioned many times, rates can't go too far just because, it would crush the economy, right? They're not in a position to raise rates right now because it would affect too many different variables in the market, which would slow the recovery. And they're trying to get, as much as we're seeing things recover, there's a lot of areas of the market that haven't recovered yet. And so they want this full steam ahead. They want full employment before they really start to change anything with rates. And I think the same is going to be, said with them buying bonds and what have you. I think it's going to continue for the foreseeable future until you see them reach those measures that we were just talking about. So I think you're probably okay, but it's a difficult one. Just make sure you're talking to your lender and have them update you on where rates are so you can make that decision. Jessica Rizzo, are there any benefits for first responders? So this is really a loan question that I don't have the answer to at the moment. So Josh, if you're watching, fill that in for me. I know that there used to be certain grants and what have you for teachers and firefighters and what have you. I'm not 100% sure if those are still available out there in the market. I know there are lenders that claim that they have loans for first responders and what have you. It's more of a marketing thing than anything else. I don't know that there's any real benefit in those cases to first responders or what have you. But again, maybe Josh will reach out and answer that question for us. If he doesn't, I'll reach out to him. So let's see here. So Manny Cruz, having student loans and on forbearance, do these affect me to purchase a home looking in Riverside County? Yes. The student loans and having student loans and on forbearance. So the student loans are in forbearance. Even though they're in forbearance, the lender is not going to allow you to not count those payments, right? So you're going to have to count those payments in your debt to income when trying to qualify for a loan. It says you're looking in Riverside, reach out to me. I'll put you in touch with a lender that can guide you in the right direction, answer those questions for you, and get you qualified. So I would tell you, make sure you are qualified. Make sure you're working with somebody that understands how student loans are calculated. Right? It's not as easy as just looking at the payment that's reported on your credit report. In many cases, there needs to be more questions asked to make sure. Because the way different types of loan calculate your student loan payments in different ways, but just because you're not paying them doesn't mean you get to avoid them when trying to qualify for a loan. Michael Charis, I have no idea. How long do late payments affect your abilities to get a mortgage? I have a 720 score, but defaulted on student loan 3 years ago. I haven't missed a payment in 36 months. Good question. Another question that I don't have the answer to, quite frankly. I believe if you've just missed a payment on the student loan and your credit score is at 720, you can still qualify. You're still going to qualify off that 720. Now, if you're asking how long that late is going to affect your credit score so that your credit score goes up, it's just going to take some time for that to not fall off, but the longer you get away from that, the better you're going to be with regards to your credit. But having a late on a student loan shouldn't affect your ability to actually qualify for a mortgage, or I don't believe it should. Currently in escrow, currently in escrow on a $699,000 listing price townhome in Encino, paying $51,000 above, will sell in 3 years if appreciation goes up. What are your thoughts on such trends? What are your thoughts on such transition property? I would tell you that if you're buying a property with the intent to sell it in 3 years, thinking you're going to make more money, not the right decision. Personally, I think in this environment, you have to be purchasing a property with the idea that you're going to be keeping it for 5, 7, 10 years. And if the opportunity presents itself to sell it for more money, then so be it. I wouldn't be going into the situation thinking that you're going to be able to sell it and capitalize and move on. Now, that could happen, but you just don't know what the future holds, right? I tell people to buy property for where you see your life in 2, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 7 years, whatever that number is for you. Don't buy it. If you plan on having a family and it's you and your wife, don't buy a 1-bedroom house to start, right? Buy something that's allow you to grow into it, because otherwise, what happens if the market does pull back in 2 years? And maybe it doesn't have to be a crash, but maybe it just pulls back a little bit, and now you're not in a position to meet that plan that you had in place. So just be careful in that scenario. It's, I think paying over the asking price in Encino is nothing wrong with it, because that's a hot market. It's a very desirable area. It will do great over the long run. But, having the short-term horizon, might be a problem in the future. So just keep that in mind. So Darren, another regular on here, just got the clear to close. I have $6,500 due at closing. Do I have to bring in a cashier's check, or do I just show with my debit card since my money is all in my checking account? You're going to need a cashier's check or money order. They will not take a debit card at closing. So you're going to have the cash on, not cash, but you're going to have to be able to, get a cashier's money order from one of the accounts that you've verified with your lender, and then you should be good to go. All right. Diana is asking, how does debt to income ratio work for FHA? Income is about $65,000 annually, 695 credit score, and no debt. So what they would do is they would take your $65,000 annually. They would divide it by 12, whatever that number is. And roughly 50% of that, give or take a little bit, is what you could spend on a mortgage payment with taxes, insurance, PMI, any of that good stuff, right? So that's the amount that you could spend on a mortgage payment, and then essentially they work backwards from there and tell you how much that translates into in a purchase price. So debt to income ratio is literally your debt versus your income. So if you have zero monthly debt, then it's just the amount of income you have, and taking half of that towards your mortgage payment. So FHA loans, I think their guidelines read that you can go up to somewhere around 43% or so, 45% on FHA. In reality, you can go into the 50% on debt to income ratio with FHA. I've seen 57% before, but talk to a lender, run the scenario by them, tell them, provide the documentation, and let them tell you exactly where you stand. Ivan gave money earlier, and I apologize, Ivan. I am just getting to you. Gave a super chat of $5. Thank you, Ivan. Why is rent also so expensive? It's, for one, inflation, right? And it's also supply and demand. Properties to rent are going to go up over time, right? Because the cost to maintain them is going up over time. The cost to do maintenance to those properties is going up over time. So over time, rents have to go up because it's more costly for the landlord to have that property. The other thing is in markets where there's little supply, high demand, rents also go up in those markets because, again, it's no different than buying a house. There's, people that want something, not enough of it. You can charge more and people will pay it. So not sure if that's exactly what you were looking for, but that is the reality there. Let's see here. And if you guys are just joining, I want to say thank you guys for being here. I do appreciate it. Tim has a question. What are my thoughts on the eviction moratorium, and do you expect that it will be continued? So as of right now, the eviction moratorium nationwide is set to expire on June the 30th, right? It is mid-May. I honestly believe it could be extended again. It's really, really hard to say at this point. There's a lot of states fighting the eviction moratorium just because they say it's not legal to do this sort of thing. But I honestly believe that the administration could extend it even further. There's a lot of people out there that believe that it'll be extended till the midterm elections in 2022. I don't necessarily believe that. But yeah, you could see it extended even further. Just because, again, regardless of your political views, the facts are the current administration wants to help people. And they feel like by extending that, they are helping people do it. But at the same time, they're hurting people. They're hurting landlords and those that need those rents and don't have the ability to make those payments in some cases without the rents coming in. So, depending on which side you're on, I'm sure everybody has a different point of view. But as of now, June 30th is the date. Until that happens, that's what we are looking at for moving forward. So, Jennifer Lego, should we set our housing budget conservatively to allow fluctuations in the interest rate? My range is 125K. I am not too concerned up to a full percent. So I am not understanding the 9 to 125K. Is that 90 to 125K? Clarify for me, Jennifer, so I can answer that question for you. Ali, do you think companies requiring workers back in the office will cause some homes to come back onto the market? Could, absolutely. A lot of people that made these decisions to move out of the area or what have you, it's because their employer said, we're going virtual, we're staying virtual, or, we're going to allow you to work virtually. The majority of people didn't just move without confirming what the future holds with regards to the company. At least I wouldn't think they did. Now, I'm sure some people did, but a lot of companies out there, there's been a lot of surveys on this with what companies plan to do going forward. And a lot of them plan to operate, quasi virtually going forward, maybe with 1 day a week where people come into offices and what have you, some sort of hybrid schedule. So yeah, I think some properties will come on the market depending on, where you are. If people want to keep that job and just don't want to make that commute or what have you, and are tired of making that commute, they might end up selling a property to relocate closer. Honestly, really difficult to tell at this point, just because we don't know how companies are going to respond to going back to work. I mean, a lot of these companies have, proved that they were just as, productive during, times of the pandemic with people working virtually. But I think the reality is because people worked longer hours in some cases, right? Because they were home and they didn't really feel like they were working. So they were putting in extra time. But honestly, I think people are probably a little less productive working from home. And I think over the long run, it'll probably be shown that that's the case. And so how do companies respond to it? Really difficult to say. Just because, there's an environment now that, and enough programs with regards to Zoom and all of these online deals that you can really do most of what you need virtually and not need to be in an office in many cases. So I don't know the answer for sure, but I think, yeah, in some ways you'll see it come back up, or some homes come back up. But I wouldn't think that it would be a flood or some massive wave of properties coming just because of that. Johnny Stash sold our home contingent on us finding a home till end of May. Haven't found a house in 2 months. Should I relist my home for higher price since home prices have gone up? So I guess if is your property still in escrow, for one? If it is, and that buyer wants to stay in escrow, then, chances are, I would just continue with what you have, because you know what you're going to get and move forward. People can have different views on that, but I can tell you, I had a scenario like this. This was about 6 months ago. Had a buyer or a seller here locally that was also a buyer. We put in their property in escrow. We actually listed it, I think, at $630,000. We accepted an offer at $700,000. It was contingent on them finding a replacement property. They spent like 3 months trying to find a replacement property. We wrote several offers. They didn't get accepted. And in some cases, they could have gotten them accepted. They chose not to do what was necessary in order to get them accepted. So that buyer decided to walk. They wanted to relist their home. At that time, we relisted it for $725,000. So we were almost $100,000 higher than when we originally listed it. And we received offers up in the $740,000 range at that time. And again, we were going back and forth, getting ready to accept it. And then they got worried that they weren't going to be able to find something again. And they didn't want to drag someone through that process. So they decided not to sell that house, and pulled it off the market. So the answer is, yeah, you could relist it depending on when it went on the market. Now, if this was just last month or what have you, said 2 months ago, yeah, I would say, ask your agent how much it has appreciated, and you might be able to relist it for a higher amount. But if you are in escrow, and both parties are still, doing what they're supposed to do, if that buyer's able to or willing to hang on, then I would tell you, just keep trying to look for the property and have that buyer, because chances are that buyer's done what they need to do in order to move forward. So as soon as you find something, they can get things rolling on their end and hopefully, get escrow closed sooner than somebody, with just starting the process. Let's see here. Follow-up question from Tim. What are my expectations about the foreclosure moratorium? Another good one. Right now, again, set to expire at the end of June. The CFPB has come out and said that they want to extend it until, 2022. That hasn't happened. I could see this also being extended further, to be completely honest. It's hard to say what's going to happen. Again, I have the same views as I did on the eviction moratorium. But with the foreclosure moratorium, it's difficult to say. I think it's going to be, I think the can could get kicked down the road. But I don't think, even if it does expire, a lot's going to change in the housing market in the short term. Just my 2 cents. O2 Brian. So O2 Brian, what do you have to say about Canada real estate? Absolutely nothing. I don't know much about Canada real estate other than it's a hot market as well. I know, agents in the Toronto area that have, told me how nuts the housing market is in that market, and how it has been for the last, 7 or 8 years. And that, there's that saying that, things can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. That's been an irrational market for quite some time. And a lot of people are saying that the U.S. could follow suit in something similar where things are irrational for, a period of time like that. Hard to say what's going to happen, but I do know it's a crazy housing market up there as well, as is a lot of the world, right? I'm reading articles all the time that, similar things are happening in Europe and Australia and what have you. So, while all real estate is local at the moment, it seems to be that, a lot of the world is experiencing real estate similar to the U.S. Plush Wolf, free real estate. No, that's my response to that. Canadian Ted. So rent is expensive because you're putting someone else between you and what you need. They make a living off you. Definitely some truth to that. You're paying somebody else's mortgage when you're renting a property, right? How can I buy my father's home? He still owes and will still need another smaller place to live. Would I owe gift tax or something when I go to sell? So there's a lot going on here with this question. I mean, you can buy your father's home no different than buying any other home. They can do a for sale by owner. You can take over, what have you. If you're needing to get a mortgage on that property, you're going to need some sort of purchase agreement between you and your father to buy that property. And when you buy it, assuming you're buying it for more than he owes on it, then obviously his loan would get paid off with the close of that property, or you would need to at least pay enough to pay off that mortgage of that property. And if he still needs to buy another place, then that's a whole different scenario, right? So he needs to get qualified in order to be able to buy that. So he would need to get pre-approved with a lender to make sure he's in a position to buy something else. And so there's a lot going on there. Would you owe a gift tax or something else? Not necessarily. Depends on how the property is transferred. If he sells you the property and it's a non-arm's length transaction, which in this case it would be, the lender might require additional documentation with regards to why the property is being sold for less or what have you. I'm not, sure about a gift tax on it. I don't think there would be any sort of gift tax required on selling that property, but, talk to an accountant, talk to somebody that actually knows a little bit more about that, and they can guide you in the right direction there. This is tough having just me in the camera. It's definitely better with someone here. All right. So Jennifer asked me, so earlier she asked a question. Let me go back up to Jennifer's question here where she mentioned or she asked her question. Now I can't find it, of course. Okay. So she says, should we set our housing budget conservatively to allow for fluctuations in the interest rate? My range is 90 to 125K. I'm not too concerned up to a full percent. Depends. I mean, if you're planning on buying a property now, I don't know that you need to fluctuate your budget based on, interest rates. I say you fluctuate your budget based on your income, right? So if your income is fluctuating between 90 and 125K, I wouldn't say necessarily take the conservative side of that, but take what you expect to bring home and then base your budget off of that amount. And then once you have that budget and you go get qualified for a lender, the lender can tell you, okay, this is how much you qualify for the max. And you can say, well, I don't necessarily want the max. I want, what does $2,000 a month get me? What purchase price? And from there, you'll know the purchase price and you can work backwards and figure everything else out. But, knowing how much you're willing and able to spend with having a budget is smart up front versus just going to a lender and saying, hey, what's the max I can qualify for? And then going out and buying a house at that amount, right? Because there's a lot of things not factored into that amount. When they look at your DTI, they're just looking at items that come up on your credit report, student loans, credit cards, car payments, that sort of thing. Excuse me. Ooh, they're not. Wow, guys, almost died on air. Wow. They're not looking at cell phone bills. They're not looking at utility bills. They're not looking at groceries. They're not looking at your going out and spending money in restaurants and foods and what have you. So you have to take a look at your budget, see how much discretionary, money you have, see how much money you have left over, and see what you're comfortable with spending on a mortgage payment. And then once you have that amount and you're going through that pre-approval process, you provide that amount to the lender and say, hey, look, I don't want to spend any more than X. And they can tell you exactly how much you can qualify for based on your down payment and all of that good stuff. So, having that number up front will allow you to set yourself up better when you're having that conversation. I almost died. People died on the air. Let's see here. Going back down. Let me figure out where we were. Trying to get to questions here, people. Let's see here. Tui Trang, when is it better chance to get an offer accepted if I can pay in all cash? I assume that's what you're saying. Yeah, probably. There's two things I've determined lately in writing offers for clients. One, the most important thing to most sellers is the price, right? Regardless of the emotional letter ties, whatever to the property, price is definitely stacks up at the top of the list. The second is down payment in many scenarios. So, if you have 100% down payment in the form of cash, doesn't necessarily mean your offer is going to be the best offer. But if you're near the highest in terms of price and you have cash, you're probably setting yourself up in a better position, right? Because you don't have the contingencies, you don't have there's less issues with a cash deal in most cases, less things that can go wrong in a cash deal, and that's why most sellers, cash appeals to them, right? Less things that could go wrong in a transaction. So that's typically why they look at cash. Another question from Tim. Tim, you got a lot of questions tonight. You see on YouTube a lot of doom and gloom videos from both sides. Housing market to the moon, housing market crash. What is the reality in that sense and what you experience in life? So I talk about this all the time. Just go look at my channel. Doom and gloom gets views, right? It's fear sells. When you play into people's emotions, it gets clicks. Most people are on YouTube because they're there to get views, get clicks, what have you, and not really provide any real guidance, any real education. Some of my thumbnails are have a little bit of clickbait to them, but the reality is I've never varied from what I said when I started talking about the housing market in last March and last April, and that was the housing market would continue to go up, prices would continue to go up, foreclosures, evictions, all of that would not be a problem in the short term. And I still believe that. I think the housing market has legs on it. I think you're likely to see home prices higher a year from now. In fact, I'm pretty sure you'll see home prices higher a year from now. You're not going to see a lot change until something changes with supply and demand. And that is all I'll say about that. Jew Park. I'm thinking buying rental properties is not a good idea anymore due to the high government started to manipulate the private market with moratoriums. Thoughts? I can understand your feelings on that, right? Once people get involved in telling you what you can do with your own assets, that becomes a problem. You're going to see some people sell investment properties because of that. They just don't want people manipulating and being able to control and what have you. As a whole, I wouldn't think like that. These are very special circumstances in my opinion. I think things will get back to quote unquote normal. The regulation will go away. Unfortunately, what happens in what we just went through is nobody truly knew how to deal with it. And regardless of what side of this thing you're on, people aren't going to be able to really know what should have been done for 2 or 3 years from now, right? There was a lot that happened at one time, and people are very strong in their opinions in one way or the other. The reality is the government had no idea what the hell they were doing, and still don't know what they're doing in many cases, right? They're getting opinions from various people, and everybody's got a take on it. And so it's going to take some hindsight in figuring out what should have been done. And hopefully that sets you up for something going forward. So they learn from these experiences. Hard to say if that's actually going to happen, but I would say don't throw out investment, but don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? Don't look at all investment property as a bad idea just because that's what's going on right now. You can buy investment property now. I have plenty of clients that own investment property where the tenants have been paying the entire time. Never had an issue. So, just make sure in these, if you own investment property, you're doing your due diligence up front to make sure you're picking the right tenants so that you're not having potential problems down the road. Now, you can't foresee, certain things happening. But for the most part, just, the legwork up front keeps you from having issues where people aren't paying and what have you down the road. So we tell you, don't throw it out just because of what's happening at this time. Jennifer, $5. Thanks, Jennifer. You're managing well without your sidekick. Think he talks more. Yeah, I think he does. I said it a moment ago. It's different. Just talking into a camera. I feel like I should have somebody here to tell me I'm wrong or to give you the right answers, because I don't like hearing myself talk this whole time. Let's see here. Trying to find out where I was. And guys, if you have questions, put them in the comments below. If you're watching and you haven't already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It helps people see it, which is obviously the goal of being here. So Kevin Mack, what's scarier, the end of the forbearance program or the end of the eviction moratorium? Difficult question. Scarier, I think, is the eviction moratorium, just because in many ways these are, there's people maybe that aren't able to pay rent, right? And they're going to have a hard time finding places to go, just because there's a shortage of housing out there to begin with. There's a shortage of rentals out there to begin with. There's probably going to be some homelessness because of this whole thing. So I think that's scarier for me in many ways. The foreclosure moratorium, I'm not really worried about the foreclosures coming to the market. So for me, that's not really something I'm concerned with. I mean, there's going to be some that come to the market, and that's going to be normal. I don't expect it to really change the environment of the market. I think it will add to the inventory, which is a good thing. But those people are also going to be in a similar position where they're going to have to find another property. And in these cases, their credit's going to be ruined, and demand for rentals is already high. So they're going to have a hard time finding a property. So probably equally both scarier, but not scarier in the sense that I think it's going to change the housing market in a negative way. Just scarier in the sense that these people are going to have a problem, and going to have to figure out what to do because of that. Right. And hopefully, again, this might come out the wrong way, but hopefully these people that aren't paying their rents and what have you are actually in a position to pay them, so that if they do need to rent, they do have some money, right? Hopefully that if they, haven't been making their payments, and they've been putting that money, if they have it aside for when they do have to go rent something, right? But there's also going to be many that didn't pay rent, spent the money because it was a free ride, and they're not going to have anything when they do have to make that decision. And that's going to be tough, right? That's going to be a scary situation, because it's going to hit them, in a negative way, and they're going to have to figure it out. And that's not a good thing. Julia asked, do you think prices will drop? Would you buy during these times or wait? So, I wouldn't be afraid of buying right now, as long as your time horizon is 5, 7, 10 years out. Just have a longer term horizon, and I think you'll be fine. My wife and I have been looking at property, right? We're looking for the right property. I wouldn't be afraid to buy in this market if the right house presented itself. So just, you got to do you, right? Stick to your plan. Don't worry so much about the media and what everybody else is having to say. As long as you plan on being there, you're comfortable with the payment, you have savings, I think you're in a good position. So that's my take. Mr. Kite, I just bought a condo 1.5 miles from the beach in Oceanside, California. I hope I made the right move. Any comments? No real comments. I mean, my comments for you would be the same as I just mentioned. I mean, congrats for one on getting a house. That's awesome. Oceanside's an area that has been, it's been changing over the years, and it's becoming a more desirable area. And I think it will continue to do so as it gets built out and what have you. So I think from a longer term perspective, you're probably in good shape. But I would say, just if you're buying something now, make sure you're comfortable with the payment. Make sure you have some savings just in case there's that rainy day that comes along. Ricky and Bahatia. I have no idea. Sorry, from North Carolina originally. I just, I get crap about my my pronunciation of words all the time. If there's a massive California exodus going on, why is there still a shortage of inventory? Because, there's still people moving into California. Here's the deal. The media, right? portrays everybody's leaving California, and that's the end of the story. The reality is, yeah, there's people leaving California, but there's always people coming into California. At the same time, you have people that live in California already that haven't exited, that are in a position to buy a home. Whether it's the millennials that are now reaching prime buying age, or whether it's somebody that's lived here for some period of time and now they have the down payment or what have you, and now they're in a position to buy a property. So yeah, it's made that everybody's leaving the state of California and what have you. But the reality is, there's enough people still in the state of California to buy up any inventory that's there. There's been a lot of people that have been sitting on the sidelines waiting to buy property, and that's going to continue, right? So yes, people are moving out, but yes, there are people moving back into the state. In fact, I have a client right now that we just went into escrow. They are from California. They moved to Texas, and they just had the ability to do a job transfer and actually come back to California, and they wanted to come back. They didn't want to stay in Texas. And so that's, again, somebody that had left California, but has come back since. Now that was over a period of years, not recent, but California is always going to be a desirable place to live, regardless of the politics and all the BS that goes around with it. I'm not a big fan of any of that stuff, but I do like the weather and the location of what's around me. And that's what keeps me here, right? I want to be by the beach. I like the climate. I like all that good stuff. I avoid the crap that the politics. I avoid all that stuff as much as possible and control the controllables, if you will. So I don't let it get to me, if that makes any sense at all. Crystal Smith, I need to sell my house, but having a hard time finding a place to rent. How long do you expect this crazy seller's market to last? It's a tough one, right? All real estate's local, depends on your market, what have you. I think you'll start to see inventory increase, but is it going to increase to a level that, really changes the environment? I don't think so, but I do think it'll give buyers more opportunity to find properties. In your case, you're looking to sell, but you want to find a rental. So rentals are in high demand as well. That's a tough one. You're one of those people that are kind of like sellers that are also buyers, right? You're looking to sell your property, but the right house hasn't presented itself. So you're not willing to put your house on the market until you find one. I think as you see more rentals come up, you're going to be, more likely to put your house on the market, right? The same with selling your house. The people that are sitting on the sidelines, as they start to see more inventory come on the market that matches what they want, chances are they're going to be in a position to list their property as well. And then you're going to see inventory increase even more. I expect that to happen. I just don't know how much inventory is going to come to the market because you have a lot of people right now that have super low interest rates because of where they refinance to. They don't want to take on higher monthly payments, higher property taxes. You've got, potential people that were considering downsizing that have said, you know what, instead of downsizing and potentially paying more for a property, I can just age in place where I am now. The boomers out there. So I think there's a lot of people that just are sitting on property that were potential sellers at one point that just aren't going to do it. And I know that doesn't answer your question directly because you're talking about rentals, but I think you'll see more rentals come to the market. Here in Southern California, for example, as you get closer to summertime, the rentals are either starting at the beginning of summer or they're starting at the end of summer because they want that summertime rented because it's the hot time of the year. So, as we move closer to June, July here in Huntington and in Southern California, more rentals will start to pop up. I don't know how that's going to affect the market where you are, but I think with time, vaccinations rolling out and that sort of thing, things will start to ease a little bit. O2 Brian, how do I own a rental with prices so high and get decent cash flow? Do I have to make a bigger down payment? Yeah, that's the reality. So there are, here in Southern California, if you want a property that cash flows, chances are you're going to have to put a larger down payment, right? Just because of where prices are versus what the rents can bring in and where your property taxes and all that good stuff are. Whereas if you go out of state of California, for example, there are many markets across the United States where you can buy an investment property with 20% down and it cash flows all day long. Here in California, you need 30, 40, maybe 50% down in some of these markets, depending on the price of the property in order for it to cash flow. So to answer your question, yes, a larger down payment would help. All right, Alvina. How and when do you know that the realtor you're working with isn't right for you? I think that's a personal feeling, right? I don't know if it's a gut feeling or not, but that's a tough one. I don't know the right answer to that. I think it's like anything else. If you don't feel like they're working on your behalf or they've done something that you don't feel is right, then maybe that's it. But if you think that maybe they're not the right realtor just because, say, your offer is not getting accepted, then I think you got to look a little bit deeper than that, right? I mean, are they providing guidance? Are they giving you advice? Are they doing the things that realtors should be doing, professional realtors should be doing? Or are they just taking orders from you and you're not getting the results that you want? I think it's hard to answer that question without knowing the details of where the question, what you're getting at with that question. But I would just say ask the right questions to that agent, and depending on what it is that you have a problem with, and you can probably get the answer that you need. Sorry, guys, here. All right. What are the chances of getting closing costs covered if I ask over asking price? Dar was here. It's tough. Each market's a little bit different. Here in Southern California, I think it's going to be tough just because there's multiple offers on properties in many cases and not really as common. I am hearing in different markets, agents still getting closing costs covered. So, depending on where you're located, it could happen. But it's one of those conversations to have your agent talk to the agent on the other side and say, hey, look, this is what we're thinking. Is it something your seller would consider? And they might say, look, we have 10 offers. We're already above the asking price. They're not asking for anything. And then you would know that's not the case. And they might say, no, present it. And, yeah, there's a good chance or whatever. So having those two agents have that conversation might give you a little bit of guidance. So I would say, yeah, it's possible. It's probably less likely now than it was a couple of years ago. All right. Tim is thanking me for my time and my answers. Have a nice day. Thanks, Tim. Appreciate you being here. What are I listening to in those giant headphones? Your own voice? Just kidding. You're great. Please keep it on the air. Yeah. The little earbuds and all of that stuff are tough to listen to. So the feedback is much better in these headphones. And in the case where I'm just talking to the camera myself, I guess I don't really need them. I didn't really think about that coming on here. I could just talk into the camera and not hear anything. But it lets me know that the audio is working. So that's why I have them on. Jose Vasquez Ocampo, my friend who recently bought a house, got a 1-year home warranty gift from his agent when closing. My agent did not offer anything like this. Should I ask my agent about this? How common is this? No, I mean, here's the deal. Some people believe home warranties are great. Other people believe they're a scam. So that's a whole different conversation. Typically speaking, when you buy a property, one of the things that we ask for in a lot of cases is for the seller to pay for the buyer's home warranty for the first year. So if your seller, your buyer didn't do that, that's something I would have a conversation with, quite frankly. Like when I'm making offers for clients, I would say customarily, this is how I write them. Do you want a home warranty? Are you okay not having a home warranty? I've offered to pay for the home warranty for several of my last clients just to make the offer clean so that it's not on there. It's not another fee that the seller needs to pay. So in order to make the offer clean, I've just said, hey, look, I'll pay the home warranty and that's it. But the fact that they didn't pay a home warranty for you, should you ask for one? I mean, you could go back and say, I wasn't told about this. Is this something you'd be willing to pay for? But gifts are gifts, right? I mean, I give my clients a closing gift in many cases. Some agents do, some do not. If I didn't give my client a closing gift and they heard that I gave one to somebody else and they came to me and asked for a closing gift, I think I'd be offended in many ways. So I would say probably not going to ask your agent, but it's a conversation. If you don't feel like, if you feel like you should have gotten one, either from the seller paying it or from the agent paying it, then go for it. But I think it's not something that happens on every deal, but it is customarily something that is negotiated in that contract, or it's a conversation you're having with your agent when the agent is making that contract or writing that contract. So hopefully that was helpful. All right, so Dar has another question here. I only have enough for down payment and need closing costs covered. If I offer a decent amount over asking price, will that help my chances? I did answer that, Dar. So hopefully that you understood that. James, getting ready to put an offer on a new construction build, going with a VA loan. Is there any tips to make my offer stand out stronger than the competition? In new construction, just depending on the builder and how they're approaching it at the moment, a lot of times you're not really having the competition in some cases, right? You're just able to go in and present an offer and what have you. I would tell you, I hate saying this. I really, really do hate saying this. In the competition situation where you want your offer to get accepted, I mean, maybe working with, at least getting pre-qualified through the builder's lender initially to, whether you decide to go with them or just play that road that you're going to go with them in order to get your offer accepted. That might be something that you consider, but it's going to come down to price in most cases. Most builders aren't scared of VA loans because again, they're a lot of times you need to pre-qualify with the builder's lender anyway. So if the builder's lender qualifies you and you're all good, then you should be fine. I mean, you're just as solid as any other offer in that scenario. In fact, VA loans are probably the most forgiving on guidelines, probably the easiest to qualify for. And quite frankly, they're the best loans out there. So if you can use one, you should. So in order to stand out, I would say no different than any other offer. Just try to make it as clean as possible. If you have an agent representing you, find out from the builder, the ins and outs of what they're looking for, and have your agent have that conversation with the builder's representation, and that can also put you in a good position to get your offer accepted. So hopefully that provides you a little bit of guidance there. Tim's got one more question here. Tim, you're killing me, Tim. What would you suggest people do in this inflationary environment? I know you're not an investment advisor, but an opinion from a real estate agent is always valuable. So, one of my mentors says, inflation, real estate's one of the best hedges against inflation, right? Because it's a fixed cost. Your payment's not going to change over years, what have you. The problem with the stock market and any of the other assets is, could be issues coming down the road with inflation and what have you. I don't really have any advice other than, just make good financial decisions. Don't do dumb things with your money. If you're going to buy equities, stocks, that sort of thing, buy in known companies that have solid earnings, that report solid earnings and have a great business model and what have you. Companies that'll stand the test of time. That's good for your money. Investing in crypto and all that stuff can be fun. It can be exciting. Obviously people are going to hate me. But I personally don't invest in it. I try to stick to things that I know, because, I think those are better financial investments. Real estate, again, it can be that hedge that you need if you're looking for some sort of hedge against inflation in the long term. Outside of that, I don't really have much advice for you other than to talk to a financial advisor. They could probably guide you in the right direction. I mean, right now you don't want to put your money in bonds or any of that crap because it's not paying anything. Canadian Ted, I had $90K. I put $66 down on a $220,000 mortgage and had to use a broker because my credit is only $600. So my interest rate is 7%. I went all in and got a nice 3-bedroom. Thoughts and advice. Not sure what's going on there. A broker, are you saying hard money loan on that deal? So you got a hard money loan at 7% here's my advice. Congrats on getting a house. my advice to you would be work on your credit score, try to get your credit score up, refinance out of that 7% loan into a conventional loan and lower your rate. That's my advice. Work on your credit. Because the terms, I mean, your payment would, your interest rate would be half, which means your payment would almost come down half. With taxes and insurance, obviously it would be less than half, but your mortgage payment itself would essentially be half of what it is now, probably less than that. So work on your credit score. That would be my advice. But congrats on getting a house. Let's see here. Joey Crack. Salute. So thanks, Joey. Thanks for being here, man. You're late. You are really late. It's we've been going on for an hour and 15 minutes, man. Jeez, come on now. And Nightbot wanted to spam you, gave you a warning for the all caps. Dude, don't come in here all hot, Joey. Let's see here. Team Blanco, what can I do to sweeten my offer? So question comes up a lot. The normal things, right? Shorten your contingency periods, take out fees that aren't important, that the seller may not need to pay, the home warranty, that sort of thing. Shorten maybe the escrow term. If you're typically doing 30 days, find out what the seller wants. If they want a shorter term, find out if your lender can do a shorter term, offer a shorter term. Clearly price is important in this environment. Depending on where it may or may not appraise, have your realtor look up comps, comparables of where you're making offers. If they think it can appraise, then maybe you waive that appraisal contingency to help your offer stand out. Outside of that, it's really just trying to hopefully, well, another thing you can do here is maybe have your agent try to form a relationship or build a relationship with the agent on the other side, asking the right questions, following up. Hopefully you're working with a professional that understands that, and having your lender call the other side to convey that, how well qualified you are, can also help stand out. So all of those things combined, I don't think there's one single thing to do in this environment. I think you have to do them all. Because doing them all is it's that combination of things that's going to help your offer stand out in most cases. All right, Gemini Moon thinks we're going to be owned by China. China buying all the properties, home price unaffordable, owned by China. No, I'm not even going down the road. Now, China did buy a lot of property here a couple of years ago, at least in Southern California, but a lot of that's gone, right? I mean, China put issues on, or restrictions rather, on people being able to pull their money to buy property in the United States. And my understanding is those restrictions are still in place. So a lot of that has gone away. But maybe I'm wrong. But I don't think we're owned by China. China owns us not because of property, but because of all the bonds they own, which is a whole different conversation. Team Blanco, heard of people saying that they are offering people their beach houses for free stays, free parties. I've heard of everything. Veterinarian services for free. I had a client that they offered a VRBO to the seller anywhere they wanted to go. They would pay for a week, VRBO. So there's a lot of things happening in this market. And, if you have the ability to offer something that doesn't cost you any additional money, people are offering it in many ways to, in some cases, even willing to pay for it in order for their offer to stand out. So all of those things combined can be a good thing in getting your offer to stand out. Joey Crack, what are some things to share with your agent or tips you would suggest to better equip them to find the house we want? So homebuyer questionnaire, hopefully your agent uses one. I have one that I use that I send to most buyers. If I don't get a pretty good feeling of what they want up front, and even in some cases I do, I still send a homebuyer questionnaire, ask them to fill it out. It goes over the basics of a property: bedroom, bathroom, location, all of that good stuff, ins and outs of property. But, in the case that you and somebody else are buying it, maybe you both do a home buyer questionnaire and provide it to the agent, because, both parties don't always see eye to eye on everything. And it's good to get two different perspectives. But having those conversations is one thing. But also, if you see property out there that you like, that you've seen that maybe you would have written an offer on if it was available or what have you, send those to your agent as well, because that gives your agent a pretty good idea of what it is you're looking for. I mean, I ask clients all the time, hey, send me something that you've seen online that you liked. Maybe it's not available anymore. Maybe it's sold, whatever, send it to me, because it gives me a really good idea of what it is you're looking for. I can look at a property pretty quickly and say, okay, I have a good idea of what it is. And I can tell, I can look at the location, what the property offers as far as features go, and make pretty logical decisions in how to help them out. So I think all of that stuff will help you in letting them know. Team Blanco, are offers getting rejected if people put less than 20% down or 15% make a big difference? I would say offers are getting rejected because of that. But if you're, where the problem lies is if you have multiple offers and one has less down payment and the other one has more down payment. In a lot of ways, the one that has more down payment looks to be a stronger offer to the seller because of more money down. That might not be true in some cases. Maybe that person has a higher debt to income ratio than the other, or whatever. There's a lot of things that could be different there, but from the seller's perspective, it looks like a stronger offer. So I wouldn't say people are getting rejected just because they don't have 20% down. But if you have multiple going and one has it and the other doesn't, maybe the one that has it is the one that gets accepted in those cases. Or 15% down make a big difference. It's all about the same. The more money you can put down in most cases, the more your offer is going to stand out. Now, that shouldn't necessarily be true, but it is. But I'm one of those people that say leverage your money, use your money to work for you or whatever. So if you can put less money down and get your offer accepted and you're still comfortable with the payment, I think that's okay. I don't think you necessarily have to put 20% down on every scenario. As long as you're comfortable with the payment, you're comfortable with that, then that's all that matters. Now, in most cases, you're going to get better terms by putting more money down. So know that, but you got to stick to your plan. You do you. So, Steve, hello. I got a 2-unit in Chicago, Illinois. I was wondering if now is the time to sell. I have no mortgage, paid $30K in 2017. I think it's worth at least $200 now. I do rent out 1 unit. So I would say, what are you going to do with the money if you sell? Right? It's an investment property. Chances are you're going to have to, 2000. I don't know if you rent one of them, if you live in one and rent the other, or what the scenario is. But what are you going to do with the money when you sell it? Are you going to try to buy something else? Are there capital gains on that money? If you do decide to sell, do you need to roll them into something else, to avoid tax consequences? There's a lot going on right now. I wouldn't sell my property just because the value's gone up. I mean, if you paid 30K for it, it's now worth 200. Chances are your rents are pretty good. There's a lot of cash flow there. I would tell you to, if you're in a position to keep that property, I always tell clients, if you can keep an investment property or a property that is your primary and turn it into an investment and you don't need that money for anything, real estate long-term, I mean, there's always those stories of, hey, I could have bought that property for X and now it's worth 10X or 20X or 50X or whatever that number is. Long-term, that the value is going to continue to appreciate on that property in most cases. So keep it if you can. That would be my recommendation. But obviously there's a lot going into that, you need to consider on your side. All right, let's see here. To Brian, what do I think about wholesaling real estate, and would the method ever die? Could you do it long term? There's a lot of people that do it long term. I don't really have an opinion on it one way or the other. I'm familiar with it. I understand it. If you have the ability to do it, it's great. It can be a way to make quick money. Outside of that, really don't have an opinion on it. Could you do it long term? I don't see why not. I mean, unless something were to change that didn't allow it, but I don't see that happening. Last question, then you get rid of me. Tim, this is it, man. Last one. Just kidding. What is your thoughts about Governor Meet Kevin of California? I don't have an opinion. I don't. I don't know where he stands on anything. But I can tell you that if it were him or Newsom, I would pick him. And I have no idea what he stands for. So that's my thoughts on that. I got a couple super chats coming in here. Joey Crack's got one. Joey Crack's the first one. So thank you, Joey. What is the best way to compare houses to each other outside of just price square foot? Try to find the best way to quantify houses. Salute. So appreciate that. Appreciate the super chat as well. It's kind of a personal thing, right? I mean, if two houses, are similar price per square foot, it comes down to location probably in most cases, and what the home offers as far as upgrades and all of that good stuff. And I think, those are things that are hard to quantify, right? I think each property is going to be a little bit different in your eyes. You got to go with the one that checks the most boxes for you. And how do you know what checks the most boxes? You need to make a list, right? What's important to you in a property? Location, bedrooms, bathrooms, whatever it is. Each person's list is going to be a little bit different. Some people want a garage, some people don't. All of that good stuff. Put those put those in order, of importance to you. And the one that checks the most boxes is probably the right one. Now, if they both check the same amount of boxes, then I don't really have an answer for you. Maybe look at surrounding areas, neighborhoods, proximity to things that you do, all of that good stuff, proximity to work, where you go to the gym, where you hang out, whatever it is, all of that stuff plays a factor in there. So I think you just got to compare it all, and that will help you in making that decision. Luxury card store. Thank you for the $5 chat as well. If a house was appraised by another buyer prior to you and they backed out, is there a way to find out that info before I make an offer? Yeah. If there is an appraisal on the property, the agent on the selling side should provide that information to you. In fact, they have a duty in most cases, unless they were told they can't, right? Because when a buyer buys an appraisal, and in some cases, I'll answer that in a second. So if a buyer buys an appraisal or buys a home inspection, they've spent money on it. So technically they can say, I don't want you to pass this information along to any other buyers because it's my report. I paid for it, what have you. So they can agree not to release it. So in those cases, the seller wouldn't necessarily disclose that information. In the cases where, that wasn't told or what have you, the seller, the agent, the listing agent has almost a duty to provide any documentation that was done on the property, whether it's an appraisal, whether it's a home inspection or what have you. Now, they don't necessarily have to provide you the actual appraisal, but they can tell you where it appraised. And if you ask that question to me as an agent, I would tell you. So I would say just, have your agent call that agent or have that conversation, and you can see if you can get that information. So hopefully that answers the question that you had there. Listen, come on, folks. Listen, 137 watching, but only 40 likes. Come on, folks, hit that like button. See, I like this. Hit that like button, people. Come on. Help me. I'm by myself here. Help me out. Jennifer, I love when you say don't do dumb things and don't settle. My futures are worth it. Yeah, you shouldn't, right? I mean, these are big financial decisions, and you shouldn't take them lightly. It's easy to do that in this environment, but you shouldn't have to. Builder agent here. Thank you for all your content and time. Are your builders cutting realtor commissions? How do you feel about what's happening with new construction? Yeah, they are. Seeing it a lot. It's the same thing that happened in the last environment where, in 2006 and 2007, where right before the housing crash and all the building was going on and all the buying, realtors builders cut commissions then as well, because they didn't feel like they needed us. And then when the market went to hell, they raised commissions back up and were begging us to show the property. So I don't like it because I think it's greed. It's a form of greed. Absolutely. But it's the world that we're in, right? I mean, they don't have to pay agents that commission right now because buyers are going to go there one way or the other. So the answer is I don't like it. for obvious reasons. But it will change as the market does change at some point in the future. They will need agents again, and that will come back. And what do I think about what's happening with new construction builders? I think there's a lot of greed going on. They're taking advantage of the market in many ways, by doing these multiple offer situations now, by not having prices on new construction properties and just allowing buyers to bid at whatever and all of that. I think it's crazy. But it's a sign of the times. It won't always be like that. It will regulate at some point. So that's all I have to say about that. Thank you for the knowledge. When you first started as a realtor, how did you learn all the aspects of the business, such as writing offers and negotiations? Thank you. Asking a lot of questions, asking people around me questions about how to do things, and being in the trenches, right? Writing offers, getting rejections, writing offers, getting responses. And it's no different than anything else. Just takes time, right? I mean, I've been doing this a long time. I'm still learning every day. There's new scenarios that come up that I'm not familiar with for whatever reason. Just time tested in it. And I'm a student, right? I didn't just get my license and stop. I mean, I'm continuing to educate myself. I read a lot. I try to better myself because I want to be a better agent for not only for myself, but for clients and what have you. I want to be able to provide value, stand out against, other agents. In being able to have the conversation and answer those questions without, having to go look them up or what have you. So just time, man, just time. Oh, Gemini, watch this. Let's, how do we ban Gemini? Let's just get rid of Gemini now. I don't even, this is how good I'm at this. I don't even know how to do it. Hey, Jennifer, help me out. Get this clown out of here. Anyway, logical thinker here in OC, California. Are you seeing less competition for homes priced in the 800,000s than those priced in the 700,000s? I've seen homes in the 700 go over asking, and those in the no. I'm seeing really competition. I don't know where the break is. Less competition, maybe. I mean, I think the higher you go up in price, the less buyers you're going to have. But that $800,000 price point is still a very, very competitive price point. I would say if you're under 1.5, it's still pretty competitive out there. 1.5 million. So expect multiple offers, even if you're in that 800,000. Yeah, you might be a little less competition, but it's probably not going to be enough to be noticeable. Are you noticing an increase in investment groups, corporations buying up single family homes more these days versus single families, individuals? From Richard. I'm not personally. I've heard of different investment groups looking for property and that sort of thing, but I'm not aware of anything. Haven't really read much about it. So most of what I'm seeing are buyers buying properties either live in and or rent out. Not part of larger funds or what have you. Zachary Gibson, in process of building a home about 4 months from closing. My truck broke down and I had to trade it in for another vehicle. My new payment is lower than what I had at pre-approval. Am I at risk? No, probably not. If your payment's lower than it was before, you should be fine. But just, again, run it by your lender to make sure you're good. But I think you're solid because, your debt to income ratio is not going up. It's getting better. So as long as it didn't affect your credit score by getting that approval, you should be good. Apple Sticks. I've been on here a couple of times. Thank you for joining. $5 super chat. Appreciate that as well. Just want to say thank you for putting in the time to answer our questions. Also closed on my home today in Las Vegas. So you're welcome and congratulations. That's awesome news. Especially in this environment. You definitely accomplished something. So that's great. And thanks, Jennifer, for getting rid of Gemini there. Didn't really care that he said that. Just thought it would be fun to can him. Or her. Hell, I don't know. Let's see here. We'll answer. What are we? Hour 41 minutes in. If you are watching, hit the like button, people. Basil, I have a home underwriting and the closing should be done by the 4th of June. They have not scheduled an appraiser yet. I'm wondering if you're saying, should that happen? Yeah, I mean, you've asked the question a couple of times here, but you still haven't answered. Should I be worried? No, I don't think so. But ask your lender, right? I mean, well, it's the 19th. You've got what, 2 weeks? So depending on your closing date, maybe you should be worried, but find out why it hasn't been ordered. It should be a really easy answer. And if it's for no other reason than they're waiting for something else to happen, you need to know what that other thing is. But you're in a position where you're probably going to have to release contingencies and that sort of thing soon enough, depending on the contract in your state. So, just have that conversation with your lender and you should be able to, figure it out one way or the other. Logical thinker, again, what are you finding them in the 800 going for? Asking every house I put an offer in for 750 to 900, all going over asking. So I just put a client into, I think it depends on the market, right? You can get an idea of where things are selling by looking at past homes in those markets. And if you're out showing a lot of property in these markets, you have a good idea of what's happening. I've been showing a lot of property in Lakewood lately, here just north of me, where I'm located. It's in Long Beach. And I've noticed in making multiple offers with multiple clients that homes were selling about $50,000 over the asking price in that $800,000 price point. First offer we wrote with a client, they didn't take my advice, and it ended up selling for about $50,000 over the asking price. And they came back to me and said, "Hey, had we listened to you, we probably would have gotten it." Because that's what you told us to do. The second go around, they did what I said, or where I said price would likely sell, and they got their offer accepted. So it depends on the market, but I would say 50-ish thousand is probably a reasonable number. Now, at the beginning of the year, back in February, I closed a property that was listed at 807, 8, hell, I don't even know where it was listed. 810. I believe, and it sold for $887 at the time. So that was $77,000 above at that time. So it depends on the market. If you're here in Huntington or Fountain Valley, you're probably looking close to 7 or 8%. Yikes. In some cases, but not all the time. James is saying, thank you for the advice. Last offer we put in about a week ago, we were beat out by cash offer, so I don't want to lose the opportunity to get a home this time. You're welcome for the advice. If you have a question, put it. I do appreciate the support, guys. You guys are what keeps me doing this sort of thing. Ricky Mbatia, again, in your last deals, has a letter to the seller made a difference in winning the bidding war? In theory, we're not supposed to be doing letters to sellers, so the answer is no. But if you were to write a letter to the seller, in some cases, it could help you. So find out from the agent on the other side if the seller is willing to look at letters. If they are, write one. Maybe make it less about you, more about them. And that could help you out in some cases. Jose, I saw your video on home warranties. Appliances are newer, including a water heater, although the furnace is very old, but in good working condition, according to the inspector. Any thoughts on getting it? Tough to say, man. I don't really have advice on it because it could be something that, furnaces in some cases last forever. Especially here in Southern California, you can find a house that has a furnace that's 40 years old in it, and it still works, just because we don't use our heaters very often here. In some areas where you use them a lot, it could be worth having that home warranty. So I would say, maybe have, an HVAC person come out and inspect it to give you their advice on it. And if they think, it's near the end of its life, maybe you get it. If they think it's got some time, then don't worry about it. Let's see here. We're dwindling off, people. There's 106. We were at 160 or something at one point. You guys have left me. I have great credit score. My wife, not so much. I was told that her credit score will take it into consideration as the most logical credit score. No, not the most logical. It'll be taken as the credit score. They use the lower of the two borrowers. So if her credit score is lower than yours, that's the one everything's going to be based off of. End of story. All right, guys, we're going to do a couple more questions here. Try to get something, before I go some new people here if I can. Spicy guy. Spice guy. Spice guy. Spice guy. Is this the Old Spice guy? Are you that dude riding the horse? That's awesome. Should I buy a condo as an investment property? I'm going crazy over here, people, talking to this camera by myself. Should I buy a condo as an investment property before buying a first home? Depends on what your plan is, right? Do you have a plan? If not, maybe create one, figure out what it is you're trying to accomplish. If you can't buy a single family home because they're more expensive, or maybe you're not comfortable with the payment, then yeah, I'd say a condo is a good starting point, right? There's a lot of people that start in condos that end up in single families down the road. It's a great way to get into the real estate game. But I would say, condos definitely appreciate less quickly than single family homes in most cases, not all the time, but in most cases. There's definitely benefits to owning a single family home, but there's also benefits to owning a condo, right? You're not having to worry about the maintenance. You're not having to worry about certain things, but there's fees associated with that. So it's kind of a balance either way. If you're able to qualify for a single family, maybe you have numbers run side by side and purchasing one versus the other and see what makes more sense to you. But I wouldn't shy away from a condo if that's what you're considering. Aubrey Barry, I'm a registered nurse. I've been getting some information about FHA loans for healthcare workers. Are these legit or just a marketing ploy? Probably just a marketing ploy. There might be some sort of grant, depending on your area. If you're a nurse, as a nurse, that will assist with your down payment or what have you, used with an FHA loan. But a lot of times that, it has to be repaid in the future or what have you. It's not free money. Probably more of a marketing ploy than anything else, especially if they're marketing to you as a nurse to start with. So just keep that in mind. But if not, talk to a couple people, run your scenario by them, and see what people are telling you in those cases. Edris Rahin. I have no idea how to pronounce that. I am seeing price drops for the first time. Do you expect this to continue? Depends on the area, right? I mean, I've heard people say that they've seen price drops. I think, the only way price drops really matter in this market is if, there are an oversupply of homes in an area, then price drops really matter. Otherwise, they're probably happening because, they were overpriced to begin with. And then people aren't getting their price, so they're having to pull back. Now, if you saw a lot of properties in a market, or a lot of supply in an environment, and you started to see prices pull back, that's something you should pay attention to. I don't think that's happening in most markets at the moment. But I think, I don't think you're going to see any price drops that really matter until something changes with supply, demand, interest rates, all of that good stuff. So again, it all depends on your market. I can't say for sure one way or the other. All right, people, we're going to wrap this thing up. Jacqueline Wilson, do you get any buyer seller leads from YouTube? Occasionally. Yeah, most of my business, many people think my business is based off YouTube. It is not. 90+% of my business is past clients, friends, family. All relational business. I've built my business on relationships. I don't buy leads. I don't do any marketing. I don't farm neighborhoods. I don't do any of that stuff. I try to provide value to my clients that I've served, an experience that's far beyond what they would expect. And hopefully they, find value in that and refer me to their family and friends. And that's how I've continued to build my business. And it's worked. It's worked really well. That's where the majority of my business comes from. But to answer your question, occasionally, yeah, people do contact me through YouTube. So that's that. And then Winston goes in and throws a $5 at the end. Winston, thank you for the super chat. Do you have a question, my friend? Or are you just giving out money? Free money. Let's see here. I'm going to answer this question real quick while we wait. I thought we were leaving. We're not leaving yet. This is just like normal. We're not leaving. Should I be concerned about dual agency situation if my realtor works for the same realty group as the listing agent? Not exactly dual agency situation, but maybe a conflict. It actually is considered dual agency still, even though it's not the same agent. The same broker is considered dual agency. Should you be concerned? No. In most cases, no, you shouldn't. I'm with Coldwell Banker Realty here in Huntington Beach. I mean, we have 100 agents or so in my office. There's oftentimes where there's another one of the agents in my office on the other end of a transaction. It doesn't change anything. The only thing that makes it better in some cases, because I already have a relationship and we kind of, can mesh together and work and you're not having to deal with egos and all that crap in the business. But no, I would say you shouldn't be concerned. Winston, I'm assuming you don't have anything here, my friend, since you're not putting a question up. So if you do have one, just reach out to me directly. I will throw my contact information up here. People, if you want to reach out, you can definitely do it. Where do I find my contact information? I have no idea. Anyway, that's it. People, I can't work here by myself. I don't know what's going on. There's my email address. You guys can reach out to me directly if you have any questions. Winston, you came in at the end. I'm going to answer your question real quick. Hello, my lender says that I'm certified as a cash buyer. They also say that they will pay $10,000 if we fail to close due to their fault. Should I feel confident that my offer will be strong? My lender says that I am certified as a cash buyer. Oh, got you. So you've basically been qualified with your lender. They're saying you're as strong as a cash buyer. You can basically, I'm looking into, I'm going to just kind of read into this and say that they're saying, hey, you don't need a loan contingency on this property. I'm willing to give you $10,000 if something happens and it falls apart because we said it was good. If you have something in writing, and I would say, what's your deposit, right? If your deposit's more than 10 grand and you could risk losing that deposit, then it might not be worth it. But if your deposit's 10 grand, they're willing to give you 10 grand, you walk away, no issue. May not be a bad deal. But what's the downside? What's the potential downside of moving forward with that offer? And not getting, and the offer not going through, right? If you lose more than 10 grand, I would say it's probably not a good deal. But if it puts you in a better position to get the offer accepted, you're comfortable with it, go for it, man. If they're certifying it, I would just say get it in writing. That way you're not, putting yourself at risk. All right, Basil, you're killing me. Last one, $5. I appreciate it. My friend makes $3K a month for the past 4 years, and second job he has been working for 10 months. He gets $1,800. Can he get a $300,000 loan? I have no idea. I have no idea how much debt he has. The $1,800 from the second job is not going to be able to be used, so they're only going to use the $3,000 per month. So could he qualify for a $300,000 mortgage? Potentially, depending on the down payment, depending on how much debt that your friend has. There's a lot of factors in there that we don't know. Credit score, all of that good stuff. So if you want to shoot me a message, do that, and I will try to put you in touch with somebody that can answer that question for you directly. But for now, hey guys, thank you for being there Thank you for being here, not there. I appreciate you guys putting up with me by myself, sticking around. If you've been here the entire time, and those of you who join me later, continue to put your questions below if you have them. We'll answer them in the comments. If you haven't already, hit that like button. And lastly, thanks again. Have an awesome night. We will see you again soon.